Okay, Mendelian genetics practice problems. We're going to work through here, starting with problem number 1. And it says, indicate whether it's a purebred or a hybrid. Actually, before I do, I want to point out, for those of you that aren't familiar with purebred, we talked about it a little bit, but think of it as essentially meaning the same thing as homozygous. And if you think of a hybrid as meaning the same thing as heterozygous when it comes to one trait, you're really doing the same thing twice. So now if we go back here, and we were working on number 1, big A is 2 of the same letters, and so this is going to be a purebred. And the B's are different, what we think of as heterozygous, which means they are equivalent or hybrid. The E's are different, so they're a hybrid. The F's are the same, so they're a purebred. Doesn't matter if it's dominant or recessive, it's just whether or not they're the same letter. Move over here to the I's, and that is different, so it's a hybrid. J's are different, so they're a hybrid. M's are different, so they're a hybrid. And the N's are the same case, or homozygous, so they are a purebred. And I move down here and go through the same process for number 2. Same letters, homozygous. Different letters, heterozygous, heterozygous, homozygous, heterozygous, different letters, heterozygous again, different letter cases, and homozygous. So those are 4 terms that we use in genetics, and it kind of shows they're similar pairs. Next part, we need to do genotypes and phenotypes. Okay, remember, genotypes are the letters, phenotypes are what they look like, because genotype determines phenotype. We look like how we look because of the genes that we get. And so 2 big P's, since it's purple, it says here purple is dominant to white. And since purple starts with a P, big P's are dominant. So if I get double big P's, I am going to be the dominant trait. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. There we go. Purple. And here, the next one, right here, I have a dominant P in there, so this one's going to be purple, even though they're not both purple alleles. It's going to be purple. And in the final case, the little p's, that's when you end up white. You have no dominant trait present, and it's white. And I move to round seeds, since it's right underneath here. Dominant, homozygous dominant will be round. The heterozygous will be round. Because again, all we have to have is at least one of these dominant letters to make it a dominant trait, and then we're going to be wrinkled. Move over here to the other ones. This pattern should start to look familiar. We are dominant brown, and then recessive blue. Bobtails or short tails are recessive, long tails are dominant. So long tail, and a bobtail. Alright, what do we have next? For each phenotype, list the genotypes. We're basically going backwards. Now they give us straight hair as dominant. So I would put that as big S, and then I can also get it with a big S, little s. I'll put a little sloppy cursive S there. And little s for curly. Let me zoom in. That might work a little better. Pointed heads are dominant to round, so big P for pointed. Big P, little p, or heterozygous would also make pointed. And little p would make round. Okay? So by now, hopefully you get the abbreviations that geneticists use for genotypes and how that determines phenotype. Okay, next question. There are crosses, and we need to set up the Punnett squares. We have round seeds dominant to wrinkled seeds. So on one side, I am going to put the alleles from this parent. On the other side, I'm going to put the alleles from this parent. And as we know, we fill across and down, so a big R will meet a little r here, a big R will meet a little r there, little r, little r, little r, little r. It says, what percentage of the offspring will be round? Well, what I can see is a dominant here and a dominant here, which is 50%. Since it's just a chance to do so, if you were going to write it as a ratio, it would be 2 round to 2 wrinkled. Next case, we have big R, little r, one parent on one side, one parent on the other, crisscross applesauce, and we get the following. 1, 2, 3 dominant to 1 recessive. Okay, so that ratio was 3 to 1, which my math teacher taught me meant 75%. 3 out of 4, or 75%, will be round. And in the final example, we get a big R, crossed by a big R, little r, crisscross applesauce. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 that are round, 0 that are wrinkled, and my math teacher taught me that 4 out of 4 is 100%. Alright, doing some practice crosses. I'm going to talk you through it. I don't quite have some room to actually do the Punnett squares. You should be doing them on paper, but when you look at the answers, you'll know if they match, you're doing it right. So if we get a homozygous dominant and a homozygous recessive, all the offspring will be heterozygous. So they will all, 100% of them, be tall. Number 6, heterozygous with a heterozygous. Only 1 out of the 4 squares, or 25%, will be recessive. Number 7, a heterozygous round-seeded plant, big R, is crossed with a homozygous round-seeded plant. And what percentage of offspring will be homozygous? Half of them will be. Half of them will have double big R, and half will have heterozygous. 8, a homozygous round seed is crossed with a homozygous wrinkle seed. And the genotypes: round dominant, big R, wrinkled is going to be little r. What percentage of the offspring will also be homozygous? 0%. Every one of those will be heterozygous offspring. A big R will match up with a little r. 9, in pea plants, purple dominant to white. If 2 whites are crossed, how many will be white? And that's all of them. Recessive breeds recessive. 10, if you cross a white-flowered plant with a heterozygous for the trait, what percent of the offspring will have purple flowers? And it will turn out to be 50%. 2 plants, both heterozygous for the gene that controls flower, are crossed. What percentage of the offspring will have purple flowers? It will turn out to be 75% of them. 1 will be homozygous dominant, 2 will be heterozygous, and the white flowers will be 25%, or the 1/4 that is homozygous recessive. In guinea pigs, short hair is dominant. Heterozygous would be big S, little s. Purebred short would be big S, and long-haired would be little s, little s. 13, show the cross for short hair. So down here on the bottom, I'm going to do number 13. I've got a cross. I have purebred short hair, dominant. Purebred long-haired. Crisscross applesauce here, dropping them down, filling them in. I get all homozygous. How many will have short hair? That's 100% of them. 14, show the cross for 2 heterozygous guinea pigs. So I'll make a cross here. Heterozygous is 1 of each. I cross. What percentage of the offspring will have short hair? Okay, that short hair one is that one hanging out right there, which gives it 25%. Oh, sorry about that. Let me erase that for a second. Silly me. short hair is dominant, so 75%. This one, this one, this one. And 25% have long hair. 15. 2 short-haired guinea pigs are mated several times. Out of 100 offspring, 25 of them have long hair. What are the probable genotypes of the parents? So we would expect, if we're going to get 25% recessive, it's going to look like this scenario right here. So what were the parents? The parents are heterozygous. Right? Show the cross to prove it. Well, it's going to look exactly like number 14. And again, there you go. Your 25% prediction of homozygous recessive, right, and 75% short hair. So that's it. Number 62. All of the answers. Hopefully you understand them. If not, you need to ask and find out where you went wrong.